Hi, this video is about, will AI take over the world? My name is David Hood. I'm CEO of 42 Robots AI, and we help organizations implement AI. This is a really common fear, and I think it's useful to have a video really exploring the reality and the practicality of this thought, of this kind of thought experiment and this fear that people have. Is it realistic? And what are the realistic scenarios where it happens, and what's the conditions where these things can happen or not happen? So let's there's a few videos that I think would be really helpful, and I'll put links to them below. AGI God in 18 months, LLM Limitations, and bad AI architecture. These are all, I think, directly relevant to some of the points that I'll make here. So we have kind of this Terminator-like scenario. That's the most common type of robots taking over that people fear, and we see this all the time in a lot of movies, and there's even some computer scientists and other people out there. There's a guy out there who is like, we should bomb all the GPU clusters right now, today, and not wait. His argument is, we're opening Pandora's box, which is sort of true, but at the same time, there's a lot of hand waving there in terms of what's going to happen, and there's just a lot of impracticality in it. And yes, I guess that there's no way to really evaluate what's the odds of the robots taking over, because we're dealing with so many unknowns. You can't really say, well, it's 5% or 1%, or that's a nonsense number that comes out of nowhere. And when we really look at the limitations of large language models, this is not something that is imminent or even reasonably possible with the current technology that we have. And even some forward-thinking technology, there's a really good chance that this is not, it's at least not the most likely scenario, and it's not, there's other things that are bad that are much more likely that people, I think, should focus more on, and which is robot-enabled human takeover. This is much more likely than robots actually taking over. This is human bad actors using the new technology to dominate other humans. Now, maybe there's some non-transformer architecture. So the T in ChatGPT and in GPT is transformer, and this is the technology that Google essentially created in 2017 with their new paper, and it basically has not changed. There's a few minor changes to it, but in general, the core of it is the same today in 2024 as it was in 2017. And this architecture is part of the reason, or maybe all the reasons why the LLMs are very limited, and they are not going to take over the world. They're not going to become these sentient evil robots. It does not make sense. There's too many pieces missing. But that doesn't mean that I'm saying we should not do AI safety. It is valuable to explore this. We do need to consider the safety implications for how AI can be safe. Just like with cars and with all other technology, safety is a consideration, and safety should be part of the planning, and there should be a pretty big emphasis on it. However, I think that there's a lot of nonsense here in terms of what really constitutes safety versus what's really reality. Now, this isn't a whole video on safety, so I'm not going to dig too much deeper in it, but just be really careful with people claiming to be like, oh, we're doing AI safety. Yeah, are you? Maybe they're not, or maybe they're virtue signaling. There's a lot of that going on. I think another common fear that where kind of robots take over is jobs. South Park's funny. They took our jobs. So let's be clear. Like, it's weird because there's a lot of people out there who seem to be kind of on the two ends of the spectrum, where AI is going to take all the jobs, or no, AI is not going to take any jobs. It's going to be all good for everybody, and so on and so forth. That is not realistic. Neither one of these is realistic at all. Number one, I'm in the AI space. I very much believe in AI, but the transition is not going to be good for everybody, at least in the short term. Broadly speaking, I think that adding value to society, being able to do more things, be able to do things better, be able to do things faster, less expensive, or with more value, is good for humans as a whole. However, there are jobs where they will not be needed anymore. I think customer service is a really great, obvious example of this. Large language models are great, especially when done right, at replacing or significantly enhancing or customer service, or significantly reducing the cost of customer service while also improving the quality. So in that sense, it will come for some people's jobs. Now, I'd like to see, in general, especially big AI companies making big money off of this, helping these people transition to a different career. But in general, this is good for people. Customer service, especially at like big companies, sucks. It's really, really bad, and it could be significantly improved by AI. It just wastes a bunch of people's times. These are crappy jobs, and where people are abused and they're yelled at, and it's just not a fun job in the first place. So let's let AI take over that and do a better job. And generally speaking, most everybody in society wins. Short term, there are people that will lose. Now, in history, there's always been this thing. Anytime there's new technology, you can go back to the 1800s, where we can't let this technology get out there because it will take jobs. This happens over and over and over again, and the people are always wrong. They always think that there's not going to be no jobs left over. The opposite pretty much always happens. The new technology enables new jobs to come about. There will be and are already new jobs, better jobs, more skilled jobs, higher paying jobs, more satisfying jobs that will come about because of AI. And really, if you think about it, the most direct thing that will happen let's say that we're not talking about jobs that are going to be made redundant, which is a small percentage, but still non-zero. The people who use AI will beat out the people who don't, especially for any knowledge work job. If you are if your job is a knowledge worker and you say, no, I don't, AI is stupid, it's not going to add any value to me, versus somebody who's like, oh, interesting, I can do this better, faster, cheaper, and I can be better at my job by using AI in these ways, that other person, the second person, is going to beat out the first person over and over and over again. So that is the most likely. So it's possible that some of the jobs that are not made redundant, but there's a kind of a middle ground, some of the jobs where there's less need for them. In that case, because people are that much more productive. And in that case, the people who are embracing AI will do better. This is also true for organizations. Companies that don't embrace AI will almost certainly be beat out by their competitors who do. Just over the next 2 to 5 to 10 years, somewhere in that range, it will become more and more obvious. And so as an organization, you better start building this muscle to start being good and utilizing AI within your organization. If you're liking this video, go ahead and like and subscribe, and make a comment if you have any questions or you disagree with me, anything. I'd love to hear it. I appreciate that. Okay, so there's another scenario that isn't quite necessarily the robots taking over, but there's a guy named Ray Kurzweil. He's been in AI for a very long time. He's got some influential books. And he talks about in his, I can't remember the name of the book, one of his books from 20 years ago or something, where basically one AGI to rule them all. And here's essentially what happens. The first organization, person, whatever, that creates the first super intelligent, sentient being gets a lead and makes that lead get bigger and bigger and bigger over time. And to where it's like, okay, they already have this lead, and because they have this lead, they're able to make the lead bigger because they're just that much stronger. And it's able to self-improve to where eventually you just have this one super intelligent AGI that takes over everything, essentially, or that is just so much, not necessarily takes over everything, but is so much more powerful than all the other possibilities out there. And essentially its value kind of snowballs. I'd say that the other alternative to this is there being thousands or millions of AGIs. And I think this scenario is actually much more realistic, where there's actually kind of like almost like a bunch of people. There's a bunch of people out there, and no matter how awesome someone is, they can't be all things to all people. They can't be good at all the things. That just doesn't happen. People have pros and cons, and you have to... Here's the problem. In any system, no matter how amazing you try to design it, there has to be trade-offs. And if you're not making trade-offs, then you're middle of the road, or maybe you can be good at a lot of things, but you can't be the best at all the things. That is not practical. That's not reasonable. And so and you're already seeing this with some of the models right now. that are the frontier models. So they're making trade-offs. And now I guess there is a possibility that something could, in a sense, try to be the best at all the things. I'm very skeptical that that is realistic. So the more likely scenario to me is that there will be thousands or even millions of sentient AGIs out there that are kind of different in different ways and good at different things, and that there won't just be one that snowballs. Now there might be, I think actually more likely there's probably going to be like a handful or a smaller set of these that are much more powerful at a much more broad set of things. And so sort of like what you see right now with the models, there's a handful of top tier models and then a bunch of kind of specialized models that are really good at specific things that beat out the generalized one at a very specific set of use cases. And I think that pattern is most likely to continue, no matter how powerful the models get. So let's talk about a few more realistic scenarios. So first of all, it's absolutely critical to think about the AI and the large language models as tools. There's a lot of anthropomorphication, it's a long word, and that's happening with these, and that's understandable because they're put into the format of a chatbot. So trying to assign sentience or a state of being to them is something that is understandable. So don't forget, AI, large language models are tools to be used by humans and code. All right, and if you can keep this in your mind, then you'll stay more grounded in reality. The other part of this is that no one really knows exactly what the properties of a sentient AGI will really look like. There's a lot of different definitions and nuance, and I would be surprised if this isn't one of those things where it's just we know it when we see it, and until that point, we're going to have trouble really closely defining it. So it's also really hard to say, well, what will happen? If it's so vague and it's so mysterious and misunderstood, it's not really practical to try to say, oh, this is what's going to happen when we get that. I mean, I think that there is some amount of interesting, creative, useful ideas to explore that help with safety in general, but to say like, oh, it's definitely going to happen, or we definitely should blow up all the GPUs doesn't really make sense. And I think we also need to expect that this could take 20 plus years. No matter how much the tech bros want the AI gods to be here, this could take a very long time, if it ever happens at all. And I want to circle back around to what sort of like very powerful humans or organizations of humans is infinitely more likely to happen than like the Terminator scenario. This is where these very powerful tools enable humans to be very powerful, essentially. And there could be a significant consolidation of power. That is also possible, especially with these big companies. They could become that much more powerful with the haves and the have-nots. And so this could be a challenge that we face. I think we should also really seriously consider, and this is something that a lot of the technologists promote, which is abundance. I think this, if you look historically at new technology that's actually useful, even that it's flawed and has some downsides, in general, it creates abundance. This has been shown time and time and time and time again in society. So I think this should be actually the default expectation. Again, you kind of plan for negative stuff. It's like you put on a seatbelt even though you don't plan on getting into an accident, but you're still expecting that you're going to get to your scenario. You get to your destination. And our destination here is more abundance for more people, more happiness, more contentedness, all that stuff that comes with abundance. This should be the default expectation for what we're doing here. Instead of fearing too much, instead of conjuring up scenarios that are extremely unlikely or that have no basis in reality or there's no real evidence for it, let's actually think, okay, this is a technology that is genuinely useful at helping humans, and we can get a lot of value out of it. So how can we move towards that? Again, I mentioned the consolidation of power, so there is a possibility that the splitting between the haves and have-nots could get bigger. Now, there is a misconception generally about when a society becomes more wealthy, that it's not really understood by most people that you expect there to be a divergence of the people at the bottom with the least amount of wealth versus the people at the top. That will continue to grow, and there's no way around that except like communism. And if you're going to have a capitalist society, which generally is far better, then the ability for someone to get extremely, extremely wealthy will always grow. But the ability for somebody to be poor it can't go any lower, right? So it's kind of a fixed thing. And so you will see some amount of increase. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. But there is some amount of that in some ways in which that distribution is bad. And so it is something to keep an eye on, because it is possible that the haves and the have-nots could become much worse. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Contact us for a free custom AI implementation roadmap. You can call that number or click the link below. And if you like this video, please like it. If you disagree with me on something, please let me know in the comments, and have a great day. Bye.